Greetings of the day and welcome again to yet another exciting series of the Chief Auditor series. Why did Dipji and I think about conceiving this program? It was only done with the intention that we leave behind some best practices followed by very big companies, medium-sized companies, and as we move ahead, even smaller companies. The idea is to capture the best practices, to understand what these guys who are in the helm of affairs of very large corporates as of now are actually doing, and what is theory and what is practice. There is always a little gap. So we intend to bring, as I mentioned, chief auditors of companies. We intend to bring educators, regulators, CFOs, and so on. In fact, all stakeholders who are connected with the profession of internal auditing. Yeah, Deepji.
In fact, this is what Satish said is exactly right, because every auditor or every educator or every person who's interested in internal audit and doing something for the profession is contributing something unique. There is always something unique which is being contributed. And there is no forum where all these good practices or best practices can be highlighted, because when you go across and talk to a lot of chief audit executives or a lot of internal auditors, a lot of professors of auditing, they'll speak about number of things which are doing, which you feel should be shared by one and all. So this is a forum to do that. Chief Auditor series is a forum to do that, and that's why we have it here.
So who do we have today with us? We have Rajesh Gupta, who is a commerce graduate from the University of Mumbai. And in addition to being an associate member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, he is an MBA from SP Jain Institute of Management and Research from Mumbai. He has post-qualification experience of 29 years, repeat 29 years, in wide variety of roles in internal audit, fraud investigations, commercial, accounting, supply chain, sales and marketing, and he also mentions etc., which means he has the good fortune of seeing it all. And we at SAMA have the good fortune of having Rajesh with us for the next 45-50 minutes. He has worked in various sectors such as oil and gas, steel, EPC, power, shipping and ports, retail, consumer durables, and a few more. So across industry spectrum, Rajesh has got experience. And now from the last 6 years, he heads the group assurance and cost control and internal audit, investigations and information security function for the Essar Group. Rajesh truly believes in numbers, whether it's his education qualification, whether it's his roles, whether it's his sectors, or whether it is his job responsibilities. He handles assurance, cost control, internal audit, investigations, information security function for the entire SR Group. So 5 functions rolled in one. I wonder whether he gets time for doing anything else after doing so much, but he enjoys playing chess and writing poetry. Shayad ek kavita bhi ho jaye. He enjoys sharing knowledge in various forums such as the ICA and others. And now I'm sure he will include SAMA in others. So over to you, Rajesh, a short and quick introduction of yourself. So next 25 minutes, all yours.
So am I audible clearly?
Yes, please.
So I'll start with my presentation. Basically, now I have not structured in a very systematic way, normally in audit process or etc. and all. I just want to share whatever exposures and experience I had, not only in SR but also in several corporates which I have worked, and what I thought is worth sharing. So I will focus totally this 20 minutes on the sharing which can be helpful to others. Now, in case of SR, as Satish said, the function is known as Group Assurance and Cost Control, but actually it's the brand which has got created in SR for internal audit. So it is normally people call it within SR as GSCC. which is basically internal audit. Now, I'm not going into SR details, because if I go into SR details, 20 minutes will take only about the number of companies, etc. In brief, SR is into 4 major verticals as of now. Basically, energy is oil, gas, and power. Oil has there. We have a refinery in UK known as Stanlow, which is supplying more than 20% of UK's oil. Then we have infrastructure and logistics, basically ports. Ports we have got at multiple locations, Hazira being the largest one. We have in Vizag, Paradip, and Salaya, that is Jamnagar. Similarly, we have projects. We have several projects. That's a construction business, so I'm not going into that. Then we have metal and mining. In spite of SR Steel going to Mittals, now we do have establishments in US and other. We are trying to build another units, etc. So that's the block of assets known as. We have some coal mines also in Indonesia. Then we have technology in retail. In technology, I have not mentioned the name there. There's a company called as Black Box, AGC Network and Black Box, which Black Box being operated from USA, which is present in 30 countries. So that's a pretty big setup. Now in retail, it has as small business as fruit and vegetable. With the name, it's a Pluck. Pluck is the brand. So I'm just trying to say that it is there from fruit and vegetable into gas distribution, into mining, into ports, into projects, into various activities, mostly infrastructural related, but also in retail. I was heading a vertical of mobile stores earlier, which brand has got closed. So that had more than 2,000 outlets in India. So SR by and large has been in oil and steel, but now also it focuses on the larger verticals and energy, and basically on the clean energy. Now, here I'm not going into details of SR structure, etc. I just want to say that what happens if you are managing such a large vertical with respect to resource plan. See, I have been here for more than a decade. And I have seen evolution of the department from centralized one to decentralized one, from a department where the different services have got specialized people headed by various vice presidents, that is project assurance, IT assurance, compliance assurance, etc. That was a centralized setup. Now we have evolved. We do not have a centralized setup. We have a decentralized setup. But the question is that ultimately you're looking at what? You're looking at skill sets, you're looking at experience of people, you're looking at delivery. So in my learning is that structure is only one method, structure is only one framework, but one cannot say that from structure I run into audit. It's not like that. You can get organized anyway. How well you manage your resources is the key. So what we have done in order to manage, since our locations are multiple, we were having problem with regard to centralized, specialized people deployment, etc. And now with growth, we want internal audit to be embedded with businesses, with various businesses. They should also take up the responsibility. So what we have done the co-sourcing model. We have team of people, but they are basically managers. They manage outsource function. That is, we have done the empanelment with around 25-30 big firms, which includes Big Four, which also includes second line, third in line, depending on the criticality of business, and also depending on the budget. I should not say, but budget is the wrong thing to talk about it. But sometimes budget becomes reality, and that reality cannot be overlooked, because then it's a question of not having audit versus having audit. So what we do it, as far as group assurance and cost control is concerned, we do not allow the line function and the business people to decide on empanelment. So that exercise is done centrally, so that the quality of firm is controlled, and also it knows what scope and what expectation we are looking at. So that process goes on for a month or so. It's a long process, where we interview firms and then we select the firms, but they are specific to business. So within Power, I have 4 types of business. I've got transmission. So I may have a different firm in transmission because that particular firm has more exposure in those. Although it does not matter much, but we are also driving techno-commercial audits where it matters, because all the audit firms are not having that kind of skill set. That is why we have mapped firms to particular business in order to match the skill set. Second is, as I said, that we do not have luxury of having large people, large resources. Budget becomes constraint also. What we do is, our objective is to have an optimum internal audit resources, totally focused on annual business plan of the business. We get involved in their process of annual business plan. Whatever is the business focus, whatever is the high risk, we align. Third is that this is very important, that we are trying to involve right skill set for the right business. See, earlier, like there used to be a plan where you say IT audits, but IT audit done by general auditor adds no value. Techno commercial audit, like say dredging audit, we have in ports, we have mining audit, or we have in gas exploration wells audit, that you require technical people, you require mechanical engineers, you require. So that is why that involvement of the right set of people is what we focus on. Now, what we do is, when we make a plan at that, see, this is a very simple, I've just given it in a very simple way. When we make plan, we try and map the size of unit. Now, unit we break into power plant or into projects and things like that. Then we have got nature of transaction. Here, the transaction does not mean value alone. It's the nature, what kind of different streams they have. Then the complexity and control. Some business have got SAP, some business do not have SAP, some has got SAP with business intelligence, some do not have. So depending on the processes, what they have. Then we also look at what level of implementation has happened from the past audit, etc. These are the 3-4 critical factors from which we evaluate that what kind of resources, what kind of plan, how many hours and how many mandates and what focus areas are required. So basically here the learning is, we do exhaustive risk-based audit, not only based on the audit area, but also certain variables and certain frameworks, so that we are able to optimize. So with number of mandates and budget, etc., remains a constraint, but we try to optimize the usage. Similarly, as I said, the second part is mandates is focused on the high risk focused, not that medium and low risk are ignored, but the focus is on the high risk. Third is review of the plan. So this is something which we do. We go back to audit committee. We go back to management and say, look, this is planned, but since you have started a new activity, I will not do this. I will do this. But proactively, we have to go. Mostly business will not come to you. A lot of time business comes back also, but not all the time. So we keep on reviewing our plan at least 2 times in a year, so that some important area which has come up, it's a dynamic environment. Mergers are happening, joint ventures are happening, or the product lines are getting changed. So it's a very dynamic environment. We have to review the plan and change it, which we do. Again, I'm repeating, we want to manage the resources in a very optimum way. Now, I am not going into typical internal audit execution cycle and draft report, etc., and all that remains same. I mean, maybe here, there, number of days, etc., may vary, but I'm just going into certain things which I have learned, which I feel are important from execution point of view. One is, what we feel, once the resources are limited and you have to be focused, you have to make use of what business has. So we have integrated all business, MIS, etc., had to come to internal audit. Whether they are of commercial nature, technical nature, or whatever, it has to come. Now, it's not necessary that we are able to read everything, but sometimes some analysis we are able to do, and we are able to intervene. So similarly, the bank auditors are also there, and you have due diligence report and you have third-party reports, etc., within the group. They all come to us, because from that, if you find there is any audit intervention required, we drive it. Secondly is that what we do is that we have what we found over the years, and I think that may be true with whatever exposures you have. The key is procurement and contract. In the businesses, infrastructures and other businesses, the key is procurement and contract. Now, in procurement and contract, now the processes of background check, etc., vendors is all theory. It doesn't happen because it costs money. So what we do from the for just doing some kind of check, whatever new vendors are getting appointed, we have a data analytics team here. They look into it. They look into why the rationale of appointment, and the conflict, if any, is not that we are able to catch everything. Let me tell you, this is just an attempt. But maybe, like once in 2-3 months, we are able to find out 1 or 2 vendors, and that sends the message to business. Look, then somebody was looking at it. So, a lot of time the messages are very important to business, not audit kind of message, but commercial control kind of message. The third is, now this, I don't know whether it's correct or wrong, but we had found that we have got, most of our companies got SAP, and in SAP we have discipline of closing month and closing of accounts. So once the year accounts are closed, sometime the people are asking for next year period and entries and things like that. Now what we found that a lot of time people were trying to do something which was not correct. So this control is with me. Till I open the SAP period, nobody will have the access. They have to give a justification. CFO has to give justification to me, saying that it is to be open for 2-day period. These are the entries. Then my person will check those entries, whether they are correct, whether they are in normal course or not. It is not affecting the financial of audited financial. Then it is given. Now, from this, see, the idea of this control is we come to know what are the weaknesses. Why, if some entries are not getting passed, where is the system failing? What is the process? So that was the idea, and also to streamline. The fourth is no annual. See, we have like any other group, annual incentives, that is variable pay, is being given to the different business people, etc. Now, in case of SR, till I validated, I and my team validated, nobody will get paid EPLI. And in that validation, just to tell you, this have been doing not only from 1 year, we've been doing from last 5 years. We have, the kind of money which have been saved is phenomenal. Because when verticals suggest incentive, they take a very practical, they take a very subjective view also. But being auditors, we go by the policy. Fourth is benchmarking. What we do is, see, within industry, etc., is always remains a wish list. At least internal benchmarking, we try and do it. Like we have got 5 ports, so at least in ports, whenever a procurement audit happens of any location, benchmarking with other unit will be done. Seventh is this about the vigilance and security. See, actually, the background of this is that I have been heading investigations and fraud forensic from a long time. And from that perspective, I've been having very close working with security and vigilance team, which always give a whistleblowing to us. And we have some people I have mentioned here as others. We've got few people in the system who are reporting to us only informally. They're part of the team, but this is a risky thing to do. But in some business, for example, where you have coal in power plant, the issues are such large that you have to keep your own internal whistleblower, which nobody will know except the CEO and myself. Because if his identity disclosed, it could be a risky thing. So that's what we do, networking. Then, as I said, that background checks of the vendors, we try with business, but it doesn't happen all the time. But for employees beyond a certain level, we ensure that that report comes to internal audit, and it is done. Similarly, whichever procurement audit we do, at least few items rates are checked with the market by our team, by calling the suppliers. So we do not give so much importance on the quotation process, because even in e-bidding we have found frauds where cartels have been made. So that is why we have started this practice, and it's making a lot of difference in terms of controls. So these all things which I've told you, they are off audit. It is not normal scheduled audit. Things are going on, but they are very effective. Now, technologies wise, yes, no internal auditor in future, maybe 10, 15 years or whatever, can work unless and until there's enough investment in technology in the firm. Only thing is that what we have seen, where the technology is taken by the company, the enough due diligence is not even done at a corporate level also. So you're buying technology which is 10 years, 15-year old, or you are buying technology which is not getting linked with your other softwares. So not that internal audit can intervene everywhere, but maybe we try and where the, it's a software of accounting nature or commercial nature, we try and intervene in terms of looking at this. Then, as I said, the IT audits are the most important ones, which we control our. That's something which my team, my report is directly working with SAP team central. See, there's one advantage if you are in a company for a very long time. That protocol. It's a protocol. For example, if there is a central IT team, he's doing work for, let's say, projects for a power business. But if I am directly telling him that such changes have to be made. Now, being in organization for so long, he doesn't go back to power and take all the time. Sometimes we are able to institute controls without even telling the business. That's not a good practice, but I'm saying that we are able to exert a lot of pressure on central IT team for building controls. Now, here I'm not going into some parts. Only one thing I want to say, that this email monitoring here, this function is being controlled by me, and here actually it is not it is day-to-day monitoring function. So I have a team which looks into email, etc. on a daily basis, but we do not mix with this with internal audit. That objective of information leakage is there in that. But if there is a fraud investigation, yes, we definitely take inputs from such monitoring. Now, fraud forensic, as a vertical, I've been heading from 7-8 years, and 80% of investigations have been done in-house. Only barring few investigations where there are a lot of technical issues involved, it is done by in-house. What we do is, first of all, the whistleblowing channel is controlled by me, along with other 1 or 2 senior people in corporate. So that is not, we get information, plus we also coordinate. Second is the who will investigate and which team will do, and etc. is controlled by me. In fact, a lot of time I am only doing it with some team member of another vertical. So if it's a for example, in steel, we'll take a person from power who will work with me for steel audit. We normally do not mix, so that there is a absolutely independence, because the complaints come of all level. Complaints are of all levels. So that is why, that being a very sensitive issue, it is being handled by me only. Similarly, conflict of interest declaration forms also is managed by IA in terms of monitoring whether form has been received or not, whether we are not putting it in a portal, whether people have downloaded, not, when they join, they put it. So it's more or less just like a keeping track of it. Now, in case of one thing I want to say here, whistleblowing hotline, what we realized is that, hotlines are launched, but the communication to the vendors and employees on a regular basis do not happen. So what we have done is that we have tried to involve internal audit team who will ensure, who will confirm that all communications have been going once a year or twice a year are going to the vendors. Also, they are all purchase orders from the system are manual. There is a detail of hotline, so that if communication of hotline is done to business associates and employees on a regular basis, it leads very good result. That is what we have seen, and it has happened also. We got a good result. Now, what we have done over period, it's earlier we had a pre-audit thing in our steel and oil business and all that, but those days the team also used to be quite large, and there different locations they were sitting, etc. So now what we are doing, we are doing pre-audit for some of the locations. But what I want to convey here, not that we are doing pre-audit, I want to convey that normally pre-audit as a audit function is not liked, because you're sitting on the procurement's head, and he cannot release the order till internal auditor. Then he says auditors are very theoretical, they're asking all kind of mundane questions, and they don't understand market, they don't understand rate, etc. So what we do is that wherever we find that controls are poor in whichever business, we do only in that business period. So like in one of the company, our company, we're doing pre-audit. So the same kind of conflicts are there with procurement head and other CFO, with other HODs and all that. But what we do is that we see that if there is improvement in process and substantial improvement, then we reduce the the coverage. For example, I'll tell you what we did last year. We are covering all the vendors beyond certain value, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, or whatever order value. And then this year we said that any vendor who is repeat vendor, we'll check, or any vendor who is a third party vendor, but initially only is getting order of more than 50. So those kind of criteria we keep telling. So idea is that we are making a dynamic pre-audit process for maximum value addition. So it's not that. Then we started this year. We started covering revenue. Normally, I have seen that in our company also for the last 8-9 years in steel and oil, we are covering only procurements. But in some businesses, we started covering revenue also, and it has, in particularly where you have large numbers of sales contract, a lot of discipline comes in if you put the pre-audit. But you have to motivate the audit. Otherwise, it's a very conflicting kind of a thing. Now, benchmarking in pre-audit we try and get from outside also, but I will not say that that process we are able to do it, because I'll tell you what, the big outside firms whom you put, whether big four or second in line, when you tell them to do all this exercise, they say no, it's a special assignment. So as part of regular audit, they are not very comfortable doing this. But anyway, somehow we are tackling that. Now, this area again, I want to this personally I have over last 4 to 5 years as such delegation authority, you will see in a normal companies, etc., it's being governed by CFO and board and things like that. In what we have done is that we have developed a model delegation authority where I have included all possible controls like advances, old advances, like deposit, security deposit, write-off, assets. So it's a very comprehensive delegation authority. And what we did is, after making it, we put the financial limit. That also we have decided. Financial limit also we have decided. And in discussion with business and board, we have instituted it. Now, whenever we find that there is only two things in delegation authority. One is CEO's power. Below that, we are not bothered. Okay, that is defined in delegation authority. And one is above CEO, that is the board's power. So what we have done is we have tried to not only put the approvals of the board, but we have also put a lot of reporting requirements in case of DOA. For example, any penalty statutory charges have to be reported to the board. Any change in policy has to be reported to the board. So like that we have put, so company secretaries is supposed to, comes in this framework. So what I have realized that this tool of delegation has given internal audit a lot of power. In fact, there was a direction from the top also, from audit committees, etc. also, that wherever you find that CEO is not exercising the delegation in a very judicious way, please remove that power and put it as part of the either information to the board or approval. So what I am trying to say is that we have been able to establish the DOA process for ensuring effective control mechanism. So and it's a dynamic control mechanism. We monitor it. So we get it audited regularly from internal audit. Only DOA compliance. Then we don't that the audit is only of DOA compliance, and then if there is any deviation, we report it to the to audit committee. So we will have all companies of the group, all businesses of the group following the same model, but obviously there are some changes due to the business peculiarities. Now I am just trying to give some perspective in this slide. Is that now I find that I have dealt with more than 200 auditors in SR alone in last 8-10 years, with different verticals and people. What I find is that they are not managers. Many of them are not managers. They don't manage things. They know how to do it, but they don't plan it in such a way that they manage. So internal auditors are required to be managers first, then auditor. Second is, we have been telling this, not that we have been, see, whatever I put here, it doesn't mean that absolutely I have been successful in this. I mean, in case of SR, we are fighting it. So ideally speaking, for everything, there has to be SOP, standard and policy. Then the life becomes easy, not only of the auditors, but also of the people following it. So we try and ensure that wherever there is no SOP, no policy, no standard, the business should have it, whether it is for the productivity or it is for the expenses ratio or whatever, we try and put the standard. Third is that technology part. I have said that in technology, one more thing I want to say is that sometimes there is a fade for going for new technology without realizing that this technology does not getting integrated with a larger technology. So what happens is you get standalone system like JDA or any other application, and the earlier system was better than then you figure out that you've not been able to consolidate or merge, or so it is always better to first think about the consolidation and result before jumping onto technology.
Rajesh, how much more slides? Because
no, not much, just 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next point I want to say is that we have been looking at annual business plan, and it's not easy for internal auditor to validate assumptions of the plan, but we try, because assumption on which plans are made sometimes has no logic for sales and forecast and things like that. So that auditor should attempt, not perfect it. And last is the implementation, something which we religiously do it. Whatever recommendations are there, we religiously try and follow, validate, monitor implementation right up to audit committee level. We don't hesitate to report to audit committee if the management is not shying, is delaying the implementation, then we do take it up. Now, so in SR, now just what has happened is that we had centralization. So we have done decentralization. We had specialization, but specialization we have substituted by co-sourcing and by defining scope, etc. And function still remains with me. to keep the independence. And quality control, we have enough material for building, for ensuring that audit processes, standard audit processes are followed. Now, this is a journey which continues. See, so there is no, there's nothing called as transaction operations, business and all that, but you have to align your focus in such a way that your process controls address the risk management and your journey is upward. So, you are able to contribute more into consultancy and management help. That's what we think we have been able to do, but journey continues. How much we have been able to do, I don't know.
Thank you very much. I think Rajesh ji, this has been a wonderful session. You could just yes, Rajesh ji, this has been a wonderful session. We have gone through this entire thing. I have one question which arises in my mind. First of all, there is a very strong mandate to internal audit from the top.
Yeah.
Number two is that the internal audit function is also a very strong function. Whether we talk about whistleblowing, we talk about delegation of authority, building in controls, we talk about building SOPs, we talk about fraud investigations, we talk about IT auditing and the controls to be built there, pre-audits of large contracts or to decide which contracts to take up, focus on procurement and contracts, screening employees and vendors, etc. So it's a very strong function which is there. So if you look at the strong function, you're doing it with a small team and of course with a co-sourced or outsourced auditors, which you have said, 25, 30, 35 firms that you have identified and you do a rating for them and then employ them. It is not necessary that everybody perceives internal audit the way it, even if though it is delivering, but still, how is the business relations? How is the relations between the internal audit teams and the functional management across units, across geographies? Because it's a very strong internal audit function where it can even question the CEO. Now, in theory, we always talk about independence of auditors and, we talk about, questioning anything which is wrong. But here we can actually see that such a strong function is delivering. So how is the relations and how it is being managed across different verticals?
So to answer your question, see, obviously, auditee and auditor or audit function and the line function will always have a line in between. I mean, to be frank about it. But the question is how much relations you can, how much relations you can improve. So there are 2-3 positive parts here. What we have defined in audit processes, we have said that, look, no draft report gets released without response. No final report gets released without agreed response of the auditee. And we have never done it, number one. Number two, we said that there is a management audit committee at a business level, where whatever concerns auditee has about auditor or about anything else, he can put it. And that forum has got CEO and CFO and other HOD. So that's one other. Thirdly is that we see with respect to audit committees, etc. There will be sometime there are differences with us and management in terms of what is in focus, what is not in focus. But frankly speaking, sometime even management perspective we take, because we see the brighter side of that, where there is some action plan which is put forth and that is justified. So we give full chance to management to put forth the responses. So up to extent the relationships are good. And other factor is that since also since I have been there, I mean, this is a personal friend, but I have been there for so long, and a lot of leaders are there here also who are there from so long. So they also understand. See, relationship can be you can not have for a year or so or things like that, but if you're there for so long, they have to fall in line. They know that we look for this, we are professional and we are doing our job. So their cooperation also comes in. And third is that we have, like, as I was saying, that we have been able to help them also in certain, functions of IT controls, or getting some new systems, etc. They, a lot of time they're taking our consultation on that. So, it's a give and take relationship.
Right.
So you raised one point about embedded function. Some teams are embedded in the with the business. Now I was grappling with this even in the Aditya Birla group. We had some people embedded in the business and some. So there are advantages and disadvantages of both systems. Embedding helps for something; it has disadvantages. So can you just explain this? I mean, the advantages or the difficulties that you have when audit teams are embedded with the business?
So what happens is that, what here, in case of SR, we have, since we have depending totally on the co-sourcing. So most of the co-source auditors directly are not having, I mean, they are not controlled by the business alone. Second thing is that whatever limited manpower which I have, they are called as managers who get the audit done. They even now report to me.
Okay.
So, up to that extent, conflict is not there. But there are issues when you have businesses. So even the co-sourced firms are embedded to business, and they, you may have some HODs and CFO trying to, put forth their view that what should be audited, what should not be. This concerns are there even with us, but we try and kill it at the right word.
Very nice.
Just a question, Rajesh. You have a lot of firms across, though you do a good criteria rating, rating the firms and then selection of the firms based on their technical skill, their skill sets that they have. But they are all spread across, and you have managers overseeing them and looking at what is being delivered. How do you ensure the quality of the outsourced firms? Because 20, 25, 30 firms, carrying on projects across, how do you ensure? Because there would be different objectives they'll be working on. How do they ensure that they have a plan? The objective is the same this year and the last year. Maybe the firm gets changed, the other, after 2 years or 3 years, you may change the firm for a particular jetty audit, say jetty operations audit, and you may change the firm. So how do you ensure that the objectives are aligned and they can look at the past and they can know what's happening, and they are working in the same direction as, the company? Because you have such a lot of firms, outsourced businesses, and again, they are embedded in respective businesses. They are not working centrally. So how do you ensure the quality delivery and the
by that most of the firms, when they get appointed, and subsequently also, since I have got the particular people who control these firms, the scope of audit is very clearly defined by us. That is not defined by the firms. What scope, what area they will do, what scope is there for every year, it is defined. So one is the scope control, that we see whether it is covered, not covered. That is one part. Second is that we have mid review. So like for every audit, it will not be possible. My person does it, but for all key audit, there will be mid review. And in mid review, whatever they have not covered or etc., we don't wait for the draft report and etc. to come. We get involved in the process itself. Similarly, the person which is coordinating the particular business, his job is only to ensure that coverage and quality takes place. Now, even with all this, we have instances where particular firm has not deployed right kind of people, or the results have not come in. Then we give them 2 months time in case they are able to improve. Otherwise, we change the firm. So we have been changing also. We have been changing the empanelment. So it's a constant process, not that all the time. Because what has happened is with COVID etc. also, the resource deployment etc. also remains a concern.
Sure.
But the process wise, we get involved with them as if they are my manpower.
Sure.
So we don't distinguish between my manpower and this. So we get involved in the process, so that quality is not asked after completion. Quality is told to them once they do 20, 30, 40% audit.
So Dibji, let me just slip in the last question before
Please,
you conclude.
please.
This investigation which you do
Yeah.
in-house as well as you use outsourced auditors, and this is a good thing to do. I'm at least I'm convinced about it, because I had the same issue when I was in L&T, and we had to grapple with these kind of issues. So how do you determine which audit has to be given, which investigation needs to be outsourced, which you will handle yourself? Is there some way or mechanism or a
No, see,
framework?
the first is, there are two, three things. One is that depending on the scope of investigation, but see, normally what happens is that we are able to make out, how much work will go into this investigation from the nature of
Yeah.
whistleblowing, normally, or maybe here, there, but normally you're able to. So if we have a resource, we do it. Secondly, like in the last 3 months, I can tell you, there have been, last 6 months or so. Now, if you have some complaint where interface of outsiders is too much, then, our internal team will not able to do it. We decide that in the beginning. For example, if you have let's say, for example, if you have got land related issues where, one will have to go and sit in the revenue offices and things like that,
It's not
which
possible.
our team will not able to do. So main criteria is the nature of complaint, and also the skill set which we have or not. We don't mix it up, because what will happen that is then we'll cut a sorry figure in front of audit committee saying that we could not do the complete investigation. It is better to decide in the beginning only and accordingly do it.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Rajesh. I think now I have this onerous responsibility to conclude, to sum up what you have said. Now it's coming to be very difficult for me because you are doing such a wonderful job. First of all, what has come out is very clearly is you have a diverse portfolio. You have a very tricky portfolio when you're dealing with infrastructure, when you're dealing with oil, gas, spread over geographies, ports. They are very difficult portfolio to handle as an auditor, with a small team, with outsourced functions. And today what you focused was not on the bread and butter, which is really done. What you focused was, you gave out the salient features where the management wants you to work and really deliver value, which usually internal auditors are hesitant to share. Because that's where you are a part of the top management team. That's where you can actually go and question CEOs. That's where you have got real independence. So that's where you are really delivering a lot of value to the organization as a whole. So I think what has come out is delegation of authority manual. So it's not that just an assurance in delegation of authority manual. It's actually building controls. It's actually even questioning the CEOs if they're not taking the right decisions and going back to the board. So forensics, your whistleblowing, keeping very tricky areas like coal mines, etc., where you're actually keeping your implants, where you can get information. Because how does internal audit work? It works on information. So IT auditing, building the right controls, having management audit units at each unit level, at each company level, where you can actually, your managers can actually coordinate with you, you can coordinate with the CEO, CFO, and work together as a team to deliver value. Pre-audits, again, it's not the normal pre-audit, but what you have decided is that it will be a mix to deliver maximum value. So what you keep changing that mix based on the nature of the business and amounts and what sort of been done, what has been done. Vendor reviews, you have chosen procurement and contract is a major area because that's the focus area, the areas which your company is operating. And usually in most industries, manufacturing industries, procurement and contract would be a major area, and there you're really focusing well. Again, new vendor development, and continuous auditing and alerts to management. At the same time, you're clued on to the businesses by getting the management advisory and the business reports which flow down to you as a chief internal auditor, as the head of assurance, assurance and control group assurance and control group. So it's flowing down to you. So it's quite a handful. It's really serious work being delivered. Thank you very much for sharing all this with us. I think I don't have to add anything. There is a lot of learning for the internal audit functions, mature functions, as well as the youngsters. That's, you have to really go the whole hog. You cannot go, you cannot just say that I'm doing something small and then say I'm just delivering assurance and things go pass by. Management wants you to act as a management auditor, not only as a internal auditor. Internal auditor is management first, and then we talk about assurance only. So thank you very much. Rajesh, Satish, would like to add
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah. It was what we say in Hindi, jara hatke se, hatke se presentation, because those mundane things which were, which we do and all that was avoided. I was really happy to see, SAP period closing, that opening, and
Yes.
that is in his hand. Pre-audit, as Dibji very rightly pointed it out, reporting informally, exerting pressure. I mean, pressure within inverted commas, of course, on central IT to get things done, email checking on a continual basis. So it was a very different, and DOA was something else that this was a learning for me actually, because how you can embed controls, not as an auditor, just check whether they have done as per the DOA, etc., or the system is designed. But that was, I think, a very good thing. Your view on that pre-audit also, no, that you don't do it for all, but you move it and keep it, flexible, was a very good thing. Last but not the least, I must really appreciate the way you very openly, easily, comfortably, which means you're really in the saddle, properly and entrenched in the saddle. You've been able to very freely express your views, which will be a great learning for all of us.
It will be a great learning to all the internet community. It's a great presentation. Thank you very much for sharing, Rajesh. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.